Welcome to Reddit. Today's Quora survey question is, what is the rudest thing you have ever seen someone do? Entitled which? On one recent supermarket visit, I was in the checkout line behind a woman I'll just call entitled which. Anyway, she was buying a lot of items, and with each item she kept asking the checker what the subtotal was, then putting some items back, having the checker undo each such transaction. Well, okay, she may have been on a tight budget, I thought. So fine, I held my tongue. I even tried to help her out by handing her some of her items that wound up closer to me than to her on the checkout counter's conveyor belt. This went on for what seemed more minutes than it should have. By now, behind me were 5 ticked-off-looking customers, each with a grocery cart waiting behind us in the checkout line. Finally, entitled which's last 2 items, which I handed to her down the conveyor belt, trying to help, were 2 small, scraggly-looking plants. Now she started complaining to the checker about the plant's condition, apparently trying to haggle down the price, which of course checkout counter employees usually don't have any authority to discount. At that point, wondering why this woman even picked out the scraggly, non-food plants she didn't like, I looked at her and said, "Could you please hurry up? You're being rude." Perhaps I could have been more patient or tactful, but sorry, I have an enlarged prostate. I'm 70 years old, and after all, nature was calling, and I badly needed to get out of there and go home. Just a half-mile up the street, and relieve myself. Then entitled witch stopped and said sarcastically, "Oh, I'm being rude?" Oh, shoot, I thought. Now she's going to hold up the line even more, to argue with me. In an enlightened moment of more sense, I figured I'd diffuse the situation by stepping out of the line and using the store's restroom. 2 minutes later, I wended my way back into the same checkout line, which hadn't moved at all, to the same very spot I'd been. Alas, entitled witch was still there, still holding up the line, still standing at the checkout counter. Oblivious to the 5 folks still behind us, she'd decided to wait, delay everyone else some more, and ambush me. Apparently, thankful to have me come back to glare and yell at, entitled witch yelled, "Are you? Are you?" My response, "Am I what?" I was genuinely confused. She then continued yelling, but something I couldn't quite make out, followed by, "Bar." I responded, "What?" She yells back, "A member of the bar, a lawyer, are you?" My highly articulate response, "Huh?" Then she yells, "I want your name and bar number." Now, bar in this context means State Bar of California, the California state agency that licenses and disciplines attorneys in California, though I didn't realize right away. The checker then sheepishly explained that while I was in the restroom, entitled witch had shouted out something like, "He can't treat me like this. I'm a lawyer." To this, the checker said she'd responded with, "Well, he's a lawyer too," which was the first thing to come to her mind. So now, entitled witch feels she's been grossly insulted by me, also a lawyer, and now she's going to report me to the State Bar Association for calling her rude in a supermarket checkout line. Further explanation: the State Bar Association has the power to discipline lawyers, usually for dishonest or incompetent acts toward clients, but also sometimes for the commission of crimes like shoplifting, DUI, domestic violence, to name a few, or other bad acts having nothing to do with clients or the practice of law. I heard of a local attorney recently disciplined by the state bar for mooning police while high on drugs. But for a minor "you're rude" spat in a supermarket checkout line, not involving violence, threats, or exposure of private parts, it's not likely the state bar would be interested. Entitled witch was overreacting. At that point, I couldn't help myself. I started laughing at the whole stupid situation. Yes, I laughed at her, but at myself too. Then the checker started laughing. I think a few of the 5 patiently waiting customers behind us joined in. Entitled Witch, however, was not amused and stormed off, apparently having now paid for her groceries and scraggly plants. But that wasn't the end of it. After checking out and paying for my groceries, I headed toward the exit. But there was Entitled Witch once again waiting to ambush me, blocking my exit. I started laughing again so hysterically that I could barely get the words out. "Nice meeting you. Hope to see you in court one of these days." This is as I deftly went around her and out the exit door. Grocery store bullies. I was at a grocery store checkout once, and I saw these 3 college kids having a field day with a poor clerk who was trying to bag up their groceries. The whole thing apparently started when he dropped a bottle of wine they were buying. He apologized, cleaned up the mess, and rushed back to get them another bottle. While he was gone, they started talking about what a complete idiot he was. They proceeded to make fun of the way he looked, the way he dressed, his weight, his glasses, you name it. When the poor guy got back, they didn't let up. They started insulting him right to his face, calling him a whole litany of terrible things, until they had him on the verge of tears. This kid was only about 16. He was terribly overweight, and I could see how he was probably an easy target for any bully. I was bagging up my own stuff, but I was completely mesmerized by this entire exchange. Suddenly, the kid must have said something because one of the guys reached out and popped him across the face. It wasn't a punch or a hard slap, just some wussy little pop meant to humiliate him. To my amazement, the kid didn't walk away. He just stood there red-faced with tears welling up in his eyes. The dude reached out and popped him again, and for some reason, this was the funniest thing that these guys had ever seen in their lives. They were laughing like there was no tomorrow. I kept looking around for a manager, thinking someone needed to say something, but I finally realized that no one was going to. Then it hit me. Why couldn't I say something? I reached out and grabbed the kid, pulled him out of the way. I stepped up to the guy, pulled a $20 bill out of my wallet, and told him that I would give it to him if he would hit me like that. He stared at me for a second like I had lost my mind, before asking what my problem was. "You're my damn problem," I responded. "Hit me in the face like that, I dare you." Well, there were 3 of these guys, but they didn't look like they had ever been in a fight in their entire lives. I'm a little over 6 feet tall and I weigh around 225. I don't consider myself to be a tough guy, but needless to say, they didn't want any part of me. Instead, they simply started gathering their things and headed for the door. I pulled the kid out from behind me and ordered them to apologize. They laughed at me and hurried for the parking lot. Well, I was a lot angrier that day than I thought. I followed them out of the store all the way to their car, doing my best to start a fight. They got very quiet, and not one of them had anything to say. Instead, they just kept their heads down and refused to make eye contact. I let them leave, and then pulled the kid aside and told him to never let anyone push him around like that. In the future, he needed to at least walk away and find a manager. At this point, the kid just broke down in tears and sobbed on my shoulder. It turned out that his dad had died only a year earlier, and he and his mom were all alone in the world. At that point, I really wished I had put one of those bastards in the hospital. Instead, I gave the kid my card and told him to call if there was ever anything I could do for him. I never saw or heard from him again. I was in a Starbucks on the way to a train, I think last year. I had already ordered and was waiting for the barista to make my drink. The barista addressed the woman standing near me, who had ordered first. She looked to be about 60. Barista: "I'm sorry, we don't have any eggnog left for eggnog lattes. Can I get you anything else?" This customer takes about 10 seconds to respond, but before she says anything, she gets this tight-lipped grin on her face. She looked like she'd just realized she'd won a game and was about to play the winning card. Customer: "You know you've ruined my whole morning, don't you? This is unacceptable. You will make me 2 mocha lattes, and I hope you don't expect me to pay for my order." Barista: "Of course, ma'am. Is there anything else I can do for you?" Customer: "No, that's all. Thank you." After another minute of making her order, the barista says, "The eggnog latte is a seasonal item, and we've actually had very few requests for it. I think that's why we don't have enough. They haven't been sending us very much." Customer, "Oh, just shut up." At this point, the customer's companion joined her from outside the store, and she tried to say something to the barista as if it was all fine and it was just customer bantering, but it clearly was not. I still bear some shame in not stepping in on behalf of the barista. I read comedic posting sites such as Not Always Right on a regular basis, but I'd never actually seen such behavior in person before. The brat at the airport. First off, I only marginally blame the kid in this story for the incident. The parent was the rude one, not the kid. I still really don't like the little brat, though. I was in an airport waiting for my layover to end. I was tired, in pain from my neck seizing up, and a bit crabby, so I put on my headphones and pulled out my tablet to watch some Netflix. Armed with my little blanket, my show, and some cookies, I was going to wait like a champ and not burst into tears at being so miserable. And that's when the brat approached me. "I want to see your iPad," he said. He couldn't have been more than 7. "No, kid, you don't ask strangers to play with their stuff. Now go back to your mom," I replied, probably a bit testily. "I want to play a game," he demanded. "No. Now go back to your mother now, or I'll drag you there," I snapped back. That was when he kicked me in the knee, and it happened to be my bad knee that was a bit sensitive, grabbed my cookies, and ran back to his mom. I picked up my things and stormed over to her. I was already in an extremely bad mood, and her little shit child had just made it so much worse. "Lady, your kid just stole my cookies and kicked me. What are you going to do about it?" I said tersely. "Well, I sent him over to see if he could use your tablet to entertain himself for a bit." Unbelievable! This woman thought it would be okay to tell her child to bother a complete stranger for their expensive electronics, and then she didn't reprimand him for stealing and kicking when he didn't get what he wanted. Can't wait to see how that kid turns out. Some people shouldn't be allowed to have kids. Southern hospitality. I am from the South, and here, at least, courtesy and doing good deeds is a given. Many years ago, my girlfriend, now my wife of 42 years, was driving a rural road when I hit a patch of water that caused my car to skid and go off the road. It went into a patch of soft sand and was stuck. This was back before cell phones, and this road was not very well traveled. After waiting about an hour, we saw this 4-wheel drive Ford coming up the road toward us. He had this nice winch on the front bumper. He pulled up to us and asked if we needed some help, to which I gave an affirmative and thank you, and he said, "Yeah, I'll help you get out for $100. I couldn't believe it. Both of these bubbas were countrified as they come. We were very young in the 70s, and $100 was just about every bit of cash we had. I pulled the money out of my wallet and gave it to him. He got his buddy to pull the cable out, hooked it up to the back bumper, and in less than 5 minutes, they were gone. I could not believe those guys did that to us. Since that time, I have owned several 4-wheel vehicles, and I carry a chain and a pull strap with me, and have had occasion to pull several people out of similar situations. Never charged them anything. Never thought about charging them anything. I've had a few folks insist on giving me $20 or something, but I tell them I'd take it, but it's going in the offering plate at church Sunday. As long as I am alive, Southern hospitality will live. Well, thank you for listening, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. Please comment below and like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.